Jonathan Kuminga is officially playing a dangerous game, and not the kind you want to play when there's over $70 million on the table. Dub Nation has been buzzing non-stop, and for good reason. The Warriors reportedly offered Kuminga a 3-year deal worth $75 million, with the third year being a team option. That's a huge jump from the previous offer of 2 years and $45 million. So, it's essentially being handed an extra $70 million guaranteed if he signs now. And yet, he hasn't. He's still holding out. And that's where the red flags start to wave like it's 4th of July at Chase Center. Let's be clear. Kuminga is a talented, young player with plenty of upside. No one is denying that. But the question that everyone is asking is, what exactly is he waiting for? Wasn't he convincing him that is worth more than $25 million per year? Because as things stand, that number looks like market value, maybe even a bit generous, for a player with no All-Star appearances, no All-NBA buzz, and no proven record as a first or even second option in a playoff setting. Look, we all saw what Kuminga can do when Steph was sidelined. He stepped up. He showed flashes. But flashes don't get you max money in today's NBA. Consistency does. Production does. And most importantly, leverage does. And right now, Kuminga don't have any of those things working in his favor. Is in a shrinking market. The new CBA has made teams much more cautious about how they spend their cap space, especially on young players who haven't fully proven themselves. The days of restricted free agents getting overpaid just because they might become stars someday? Those days are gone. And this isn't just about Kuminga. This is about the league as a whole shifting its mindset. Teams are no longer obsessed with stacking a few superstars and filling the rest of the roster with vet minimums. That era, the top-heavy superteam era, is fading. Teams now prioritize depth, versatility, and flexibility over just having 3 guys eating up $120 million in cap space. So what does that mean for someone like Kuminga? It means he needs to understand that being a solid third or fourth option on a contender might be his lane for now, and that's not a bad thing. But if he keeps overvaluing himself, he could price himself right out of relevance. Let's break this down. It was offered essentially the same annual salary as Josh Giddey. And say what you want about Giddey, but it's been a bigger part of his team's identity and defensive flaw. Kuminga's numbers last season? About 16 points and 5 rebounds per game. Maybe 3 or 4 assists, depending on the stretch. Respectable. Solid. But not spectacular. Not franchise player level. And certainly not the kind of numbers that justify demanding a better deal when you're already being offered almost $50 million guaranteed. And this is where it gets risky. If he declines this deal and decides to bet on himself, maybe by accepting the qualifying offer and becoming an unrestricted free agent next summer, is entering dangerous territory. One injury, and that dream pad disappears. One off-season in a system that don't highlight his strengths, and his numbers could drop. He goes from being a $25 million guy to a $15 million guy, or worse. That's the gamble. Plus, there is the trade factor. The Warriors can't even trade him for fair value right now because of severe restrictions. They can only take back contracts worth $12.5 million in exchange for him. That's not enough value for a young player with upside. And that makes it nearly impossible for Golden State to move him unless they're willing to take a loss. So if the Kings holding out is going to force the Warriors, hand into trading him somewhere he wants to go, is mistaken. It's back them into a corner, and that's not going to win him any favors in that front office. But even more frustrating is that this deal is turning down is structured to give him both security and flexibility. He gets 2 years of guaranteed money and the opportunity to re-enter free agency early if he outperforms the deal. That third-year team option could end up being mutually beneficial if he develops into a more dominant player. But refusing that because he wants even more security or more money just shows a disconnect with how the league values players in his tier. And maybe that's the core of the issue. Maybe Kuminga still sees himself as a future star. Maybe he thinks that if he's given the keys to an offense, he'll explode and prove everyone wrong. But if that's the case, then he needs to accept that he'll have to go to a rebuilding team to do it. Because no playoff team, no contender, is going to hand him the ball and say, go lead US. Those teams already have their stars. He's not going to take the ball out of Steph Curry's hands. He's not going to take over from Jimmy Butler. And if he ends up being traded, it's going to be in a package that brings the Warriors another star in return, which means Kuminga will once again be a role player on a win-now team. That's the reality. And even if that's what he wants, to be the number one guy on a bad team, he still has to get there. Right now, he's in limbo. He's turning down good money from a good team, with no clear path to something better. And every day he watches, the Warriors lose a team to build around the rest of the roster. They've already missed out on key pieces. The clock's ticking, and this front office don't have the luxury of sitting back and waiting for a young player to decide whether he wants to be part of a championship push or chase a dream that might never materialize. That brings us to another comparison, Jalen Green. Green got a 3-year, $90 million deal with a third-year team option. Is a more dynamic scorer, had more impact on his team's offense, and still only got a slight bump over what Kuminga's being offered. So if Green is setting the upper limit for young, developing players, then Kuminga should recognize is already closer to that ceiling, at least in terms of salary. And yet, he still thinks he can get more. Maybe he's being misled. Maybe it's his agent. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's pride. But someone needs to sit down with him and walk him through what's happening across the league. Cap space is drying up. Teams are playing it safer. They're not throwing bags of money at potential anymore. They're waiting. Watching. Making smarter investments. And if Kuminga keeps dragging this out, he might end up being the guy that teams remember as the one who overplayed his hand. He's not a max player. He's not even an Air Max player yet. He's got tools. He's got promise. But that promise hasn't turned into production at a high enough level to warrant what he seems to be expecting. And until it does, the smart move, the career-saving move, is to take the money, play well, and then renegotiate from a position of strength, not desperation. And let's not forget what's at stake for the Warriors. This is a franchise trying to squeeze another title out of Steph's remaining years. They're already treading water, fighting through cap constraints, and watching rivals get stronger. They can't afford to lose more team or roster flexibility because one player can't make up his mind. Sign the deal, let the team move forward, and if you want to be the man somewhere else, prove it on the court this season. As for what the Warriors can do if he continues to stall, well, the options are limited. Trade possibilities are restricted. The roster spots are tightening up. And the idea of letting him walk for nothing is just not an option. So at some point, either Kuminga signs and secures his future, or he risks tanking his own value to the point where neither side comes out happy. This saga is dragging on longer than anyone expected, and it's reaching the point where it could affect more than just Kuminga. The team needs clarity. The fans need clarity. And most importantly, the front office needs to start executing the rest of the off-season plan without having to tiptoe around one player's contract situation. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about momentum. It's about chemistry. It's about putting together a roster that's ready to compete from day one. And right now, Jonathan Kuminga is holding up the process. And while all of this drama unfolds around Kuminga, the Warriors are still trying to build a team that can legitimately chase another championship. That's what makes his holdout even more frustrating. Every day what's, the front office is stuck in a holding pattern. They can't make moves with full clarity. They can't solidify rotations. They can't finalize the depth chart because one of their core young players is still sitting on an offer that's more than fair by today's standards. Meanwhile, other names are floating around, quietly moving through the free agent market, and one of them could actually make a lot of sense for Golden State. That name is Alex Len. Now, Len might not be the flashiest center in the league, but he brings something the Warriors have been missing since the departure of players like Javale McGee or even a younger Andrew Bogut, precise. At 7 feet tall, with a consistent ability to rebound and bend down low, Len could be exactly what this team needs as a third option at the 5, especially in a post-season setting where size starts to matter more than ever. Esa guy was averaged around 8 points and 8 rebounds throughout his career, and while those numbers won't jump off the page, they represent reliability. It's not going to give you 70 minutes a night, but don't have to. He used us to be big, play physical, and absorb minutes during the regular season to keep the legs of veterans like Draymond Green and Al Horford fresh for when it really matters. That kind of role is underrated, and it's the exact type of move that helps teams like Golden State get through the grind of an 82-game season. The Knicks have already worked him out, which means on teams, radars, but if they pass, the Warriors should absolutely step in, especially if they manage to resign Kuminga, bring in a few shooters, and solidify the bench rotation. Len would give them another look, another body to throw at the bigs they face in the playoffs like Rudy Gobert, Nikola Jokic, Alperen Sengun, or Anthony Davis. Having that kind of matchup insurance is crucial, particularly for a team that's often undersized when Draymond is playing the 5. But once again, it all ties back to Kuminga. Because until his situation is resolved, the Warriors can't commit to final pieces like Len. They can't afford to spend on depth when the budget is still uncertain. And they're not just dealing with cap space here, it's about flexibility. Every $1 million tied up in one player affects what they can do with the rest of the roster. And with how competitive the Western Conference is shaping up to be, those marginal decisions, was your 9th or 10th man, could end up making or breaking the season. There is also the question of how much the Warriors believe in Kuminga long term. They've been patient with his development. They've given him chances. They've kept him through trade deadlines when he could be used as a chip in deals for win now stars. That's a clear signal that they see something in him. But patience has limits, especially when your timeline is Steph Curry's. This isn't a rebuilding team. This isn't a franchise with 5 years to wait and see if a young forward blossoms into an all-star. The championship window is now. And if Kuminga can't get on board with that, then maybe both sides need to be honest about what's next. What's also concerning is the ripple effect his indecision is having inside the locker room. Whether players admit it publicly or not, they notice when a teammate is holding out. It shifts the mood. It raises questions. Is he really a lean? Is he just here until the next trade? Is he playing for US or for his next contract? Those kinds of distractions add up, and for a team that already struggled with chemistry and continuity last season, the last thing they need is another cloud hanging over the start of training camp. And that brings us to something deeper, identity. The Warriors, for the better part of the last decade, have had a clear sense of who they are. Fast-paced, ball movement, unselfish play, and the stars who buy in, not just to the system but to the culture. If Kuminga sees himself as something outside of that, as someone was only concerned with maximizing his individual value, then it's not just a contract issue. It's a fit issue. And that's something no amount of money can fix. The sad part is, it didn't have to come to this. When the initial offer of 2 years and $45 million came in, Kuminga had a golden opportunity to lock in his future and continue growing with a team that believes in him. The Warriors reportedly even adjusted that offer to give him more guaranteed money, meeting what he asked for, and still, is hesitating. That's the kind of decision that can define a career, and right now, it's starting to look like a mistake. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Rumors have a way of spreading fast in the basketball world, and this one has sent shockwaves through both sides of the Atlantic. Whispers are growing louder that Alperen Şengün, the Turkish big man who stole the show at EUROBASKET with his dazzling footwork and uncanny vision, has signed with the Golden State Warriors. Nothing has been made official yet, but insiders close to the situation insist the paperwork is already in motion, with Golden State planning to unveil its surprise signing in the coming days. If true, the move would mark a seismic shift in the way the Warriors approach their interior game, a part of the floor that has often been considered their Achilles heel during their dynastic run. Şengün's rise in Europe has been meteoric, his blend of old-school post-moves and modern passing flair drawing comparisons to legends of the game. His ability to command the low block, create shots for teammates, and stretch defenses has made him a fan favorite overseas, and apparently irresistible for the Warriors' front office. For years, Golden State has relied on a small ball identity, spacing the court with shooters while sacrificing dominance in the paint. The addition of Şengün could represent a radical shift, offering the Warriors a genuine interior anchor who can both punish defenders with his back to the basket and orchestrate offense like a point guard in disguise. The team is curious, though. With Stephen Curry entering the latter stages of his career and Draymond Green showing signs of wear, many have wondered how the Warriors would evolve. A move for Şengün feels like a statement of intent. This dynasty isn't done just yet. There are murmurs that coach Steve Kerr is already sketching out offensive sets to feature the Turkish star at the heart of the action, envisioning him as a fulcrum around which the shooters can orbit. Skeptics, of course, question whether Şengün can adapt quickly to the physicality of the vast Western Conference and the relentless pace of Golden State system. Yet the buzz refuses to die down. Bay Area fans are already imagining him throwing no-look passes to Curry in the corner or finishing slick pick-and-rolls with Klay Thompson. If the chatter proves true, the Warriors might have pulled off one of the most unexpected and game-changing moves in recent memory. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.